Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody, for the week of June 1st. I'm Ryan Miller, and also not a Heather, Matt Amberg.
I'm not a Heather. I'm definitely more of Veronica. You're kind of an Archie.
Fair.
I'm more of a Jughead.
And this is Book Club for Movies, where we watch one movie a week, and we invite you to do the same. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter, or podcast at bookclubformovies.com, where you can join the conversation.
Join it.
Participate.
Do it. I know. Yeah, like the look you gave me, you're like, should we have people do this? I don't know. I don't know.
If I get like 2 millimeters from promotion, or sometimes I drop in a radio announcer too often, I feel like already. So I don't know, just feel icky. I feel icky when I say, hey, pay attention to the thing we spend all of our free time. No, that's not true. We don't spend
hours of free time.
All of our emotional free time doing.
Actually pretty accurate. It's emotionally fulfilling and draining all at once. I am like pumped up, and then by the time we're done, I am just a husk.
And speaking of all of those things, emotionally drain yourself with do you say pumped up?
Sure.
Pumped up synopsis, if you got it, for this thing. Heather's, did I mention? I kind of did in a roundabout way. We're doing Heather's this week, everybody.
All right, here, fine, do it. Here, Heather's pumped up. Go. Here is your book club. It's gonna be a thing about Heather's. Okay, Heather's gonna come at you an hour and 43 minutes. Written by Daniel Waters, directed by Michael Lehman, starring Winona Ryder, Christian Slater, Shannon Doherty, Lisanne Falk, Kim Walker. Here is your book club for movie synopsis for Heather's. In the Clickfield halls of Westerberg High, 3 Heathers and a Veronica reside at the very top. As Veronica begins to tire of the Heather's games, she meets a cool, collected, and potentially violent student named JD, who inspires Veronica to finally answer the question, how many Heathers do we really need?
That's a good question. Why don't we answer it for like an hour?
Hey, okay. Let's take some time on it.
So we're doing Heather's this week. It's one of them movies that I've never seen, that Matt's seen, and that when I read the description to, it mentions cult classic at some point. It's
true.
Because this is a movie that very few people wanted to do, it seems, at first.
Outside of Winona Ryder, who was just like desperate as all hell to do it, she was everybody else that was ever like even looked at for the movie, to my memory, was like, no, I'm not doing that.
And I guess she had a friend or somebody in her school, what kind of school I don't know, being a child actor, committed suicide. Somebody close-ish to her committed suicide that I guess kind of cemented her desire to do this. But yeah, everybody else that was approached or semi-involved, Kubrick didn't so much reject as didn't respond, it seems, to Daniel Waters' request to direct. But Winona Ryder's agent reportedly got down on his hands and knees to beg her not to do this film because it would destroy her career.
And this is like right after Beetlejuice.
It was the same year too. Yeah, she's commented on that too, saying that basically one of the reasons she almost didn't get it, I guess, is that somebody somewhere thought maybe she wasn't pretty enough, which I feel like that's the wrong way of putting that, because she's a certified smoke show, right? I mean, come on.
Whoa, look at you bringing it out.
I think maybe she wasn't blonde enough is what the
person,
whoever came up with that, was thinking of saying, I guess. I don't know.
I have to assume, because I mean, keeping in mind that her Beetlejuice was really the breakout role for her. And
was it really?
Oh, sure.
I could have sworn, I don't know. Winona Ryder just seems like she's been around forever.
She was like, what, 14 or 15 when they made Beetlejuice? She was 15 or 16 for this.
And I guess her comment was essentially that she didn't look a whole lot different from that. So she didn't.
No.
Again, whoever made the pretty remark, I don't know, but she understood, I think, what they were saying, in that she was kind of a different cast than.
She wasn't preppy enough by any means.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
And she gets like
they mixed up the letters. They did the P's and the T's instead of the P's.
Watch your P's and T's. But she also, like, it's kind of funny though, because she does get a little preppy-esque, but she still has the goth bent to her at the very end of Beetlejuice.
True.
Like,
okay,
she's way more. She's way more like, but she's got the like kind of goth schoolgirl thing going on. So that
either it seems ridiculous because she's got the range and she completely pulls it off in this thing. Spoiler, which we will actually spoil this thing. By the way.
And I mean, let's be real. This movie is her movie. It's Christian Slater is while he is also billed as a star. This movie is 200% Winona Ryder vehicle all day long.
Yeah, you enter the story through here at the very least. We'll get to Slater, I guess.
You mean Jack Nicholson, where he first? This is his the initial time in his career where he flat out. This is where he said, "Yeah, I was totally doing a Jack Nicholson impression," and then it never changed.
I've found like 2 or 3 places referencing that. I haven't found the original where he actually cops to that. But yes, that was until I had read that, because I do my reading for these things after I watch the movie because I don't want to color, my interpretation or whatever. But apparently, yes, somewhere he's like, yeah, I was consciously channeling Nicholson in this, which doesn't necessarily explain like the rest of his career. But
I think he found something that worked for him and went with it.
He's not just channeling Nicholson, like he's basically the Joker. And this movie came out the same year that Nicholson was doing the Joker in Batman. He's essentially just doing another Joker like Nicholson in a different movie in the same year.
See, now it just makes me want to see what his Joker would have been like.
This is it.
I want to see him up against Batman, not Heather's.
Not Winona Ryder. See, we're going to disagree on that.
I mean, Winona Ryder, I'm okay. She could be Batwoman. That's fine.
That's true. She could actually, like right now.
I'm good with it. She'd be a good Oracle, actually. I totally dig her as Oracle.
Sure, no.
Like being an older Oracle, that'd be cool.
I'm into the Winona sense. Winona, the writer sense?
The writer sense. Yeah, she and Brendan Fraser need to make a movie together.
So we can just combine the Renaissance?
We need another Renaissance type movie that's just like Expendables, where they took all of those actors that everybody from the 80s was like, we're going to make stupid movies. Cool, let's do that, but with all of the actors we also like from the 90s. So that
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like other genre expendable movies.
Yes,
Seriously.
exactly. Get the Renaissance going and the Ryder-sance, and who else can we pull? Joe Piscopo. I watched a Joe Piscopo movie this weekend. That was weird. What? Yeah. Put him in it too.
I mean, yeah. Who would be in that Expendables movie?
Well, Joe Piscopo.
Was he actually in the? Yeah, okay. That's
no,
right.
he was not, but he should be.
Oh. I'm not as well versed in the Episcopalian.
I'm not either, but I saw a movie with him and his name popped into my head.
Is the religious text I gave to his work of? Okay. So
Heather's though doesn't have Joe
Heather's
Piscopo.
though.
But it does have some great church sequences.
When you said it was a dark comedy, I don't know that you did it justice, honestly.
I told you it's a black comedy. I said it's a real black comedy.
Okay, you did say black comedy. That's right. True. Maybe I should have taken that more along the lines as like if somebody says dark metal as opposed to like Norwegian black metal, then I would have been a little bit more prepared. But honestly, that didn't even help. Like halfway through, I'm like, what is this thing? So the very first scene is this beautiful introduction to these 3 Heathers, Shannon Doherty and the other 2 girls.
Lisanne Falk and Kim Walker. Kim Walker
the actual blonde ones, yes, which I guess they wanted Doherty to be blonde, but she being the quote-unquote handful on set that you hear about from time to time.
It's all you've ever heard about.
Did not want to dye her hair blonde.
Legitimately the only person I've ever seen out of anything she's ever done that's come out and said anything about her being on set and not being a pain to work with in any respect was Kevin Smith, who said she was fine on Mallrats.
Oh, really?
So
the movie where she breaks the fourth wall to be a handful. Either way, I think she does great in this thing as well. But the opening scene is just this beautiful half slow motion thing of them playing croquet as they hit balls into Winona Ryder's face, who's buried underground. And it sets the perfect tone for this movie because it's almost like a magical realism type thing where you wonder what's real kind of for the rest of the movie, but because it is so out there, like that first scene probably isn't real.
Sure. No, that's definitely supposed to be, if I remember correctly, I think that's actually supposed to be her dreaming, like having a daydream type thing, or
But it doesn't connect that dot. Like
it doesn't, but okay, so it kind of does, because the use of the croquet thing throughout the movie as it becomes
Sure.
who gets the red ball and who has all that. But it also, as I've grown up, and when we get to the end of the movie, I think the beginning informs exactly where you're going, because the whole thing being she is not a Heather, so she's the one, but she's also accepted, so she's allowed to be on the field, but she can't play the game. Like, that's kind of the deal.
perfect. And honestly, it sets the perfect tone. Like when you say it kind of connects the dot, like that's the point. It kind of doesn't really. It doesn't
explicitly. Yeah,
yes.
They don't explicitly ever call back to that,
which is perfect,
sequence.
honestly. And you're right. We're introduced to this scenario where Winona Ryder's character Veronica is not a Heather. This thing is written great. It's written like a noir, I swear. Like the verbal gymnastics I'm going to have to do to talk about what actually happens are, I'm sure, going to be just as entertaining. Maybe? No. Go watch the movie. Okay, hold on.
No. You keep going with that.
Right,
that was great stream of consciousness. I was loving it. I do. I love it. Keep going.
She's part of this clique, and it's mentioned outright that she was brought in on purpose and made by Heather Chandler. Mm-hmm. And they're just the meanest girls. Like, it's Mean Girls until it gets just blacker and blacker and blacker. Like, it's pretty Mean Girls. There's a heavy set girl in the high school that they
Martha
play
Dunstock.
They call her Martha Dump Truck.
They call her Martha Dump Truck.
And they play a pretty mean joke on her, and Christian Slater's kind of watching from the background. And at first, you kind of get the feeling that, Veronica herself isn't into it as much. Christian Slater is watching them and being like, I can tell Veronica's not into it. Like, we're kindred spirits, whatever, I don't know. And they do connect, but that scene ends with Christian Slater pulling out a gun and shooting two jocks.
Ram and... I can't remember what the other guy's name is. It's Ram and something.
But shooting those two guys in the middle of the cafeteria, but with blanks. So, but the scene ends right there. So you're just like, what? Again, it's another, am I watching a dream sequence? Like,
what is happening?
Is this movie? And then we come back to them, the girls talking about it after the fact. Like, oh, he used blanks and all this stuff. And even then you're like, okay, this is the first 13 minutes, by the way. We have a school shooting.
This movie,
fake or not.
One thing I will say for this movie, in my opinion, is that it picks up right away and it's engaging immediately. And to me, the movie doesn't have it doesn't dip. It kind of stays even. It has more peaks. But it doesn't, sure. I don't think it has, I don't particularly think it goes into a valley. I think it just kind of, and it's not to say that it's ramped up, like we're not talking, Avengers, where it's just more and more action. It just is constantly, you're engaged in every moment, and every moment is more and more ridiculous or weird or whatever. Yeah. And you just kind of, it just never lets go in the right way.
It doesn't let go in a few of the wrong ways too, I guess.
Oh, interesting. Curious what those are.
No. I mean, it's a dark comedy. Like, I feel like it's half wrong on purpose. Like,
oh, sure.
Again,
okay, sure.
That's what I mean. The first 15 minutes where we've got bulimia and
oh yeah, that's right. Shannon Doherty needs Heather or Veronica's help to vomit. Which they mock.
Something, yeah.
No, that's exactly no. She does the finger. She says a friend's work is never done.
Missed that.
And she goes in to stick her finger down Doherty's throat.
But yeah, we've got that. We've got the fake school shooting. We've got
just straight up bullying on every level.
Yes. So in the first 13 minutes.
Yeah.
Within the first 30 minutes, we're into premeditated murder, which. The rest of the movie is essentially that Winona Ryder and Christian Slater do get together, and Christian Slater is there to kind of indulge her fantasies. She's writing in her journal this whole time, like, please, I don't actually want to kill these girls, or I do want to kill these girls, or, murder is mentioned many times, whether hyperbolically or not. And Christian Slater comes along and is like, give her something to make her, okay, they go to a party the night before, and Veronica throws up, and Heather gets upset, and Heather Chandler again, who's kind of the leader here, and basically says, they have a fight and she'll destroy her and you're out of the group, all this stuff. So Veronica wants to get back at her and decides to do something to make her throw up. So he goes with Christian Slater, and Christian Slater's like, okay, we'll give her this. It's like
bleach,
straight up poison.
Yeah, it was
bleach.
I think it's bleach.
It's like drain cleaner or something.
That's what
whatever.
it is. It's
She's like,
Drano.
I don't want to kill her. I want to make her throw up. So she does like
milk and orange
juice and milk. Yeah. But accidentally grabs the cup of drain cleaner as she's kissing Slater and gives that to Heather, who then actually does immediately die.
Keeping in mind that Slater realizes that the mistake and does not and chooses not to correct it.
Almost does, and then is like, nah, and then yes,
and then
they give her the drain cleaner,
and then we get one of the Heather Chandler has two of the best quotes in the movie. One is right at the beginning where she mentions the chainsaw. It is something that ever since that movie came out, I can't honestly tell. I've been saying it since I'm like 10 years old, I think, when I saw the movie for the first time. And I mean, if we're not doing it in front of our parents, but if you don't think we're swearing like crazy in school, of course we are. That and then corn nuts. BQ or
dying word, I think.
BQ or plain BQ. But then her dying word is as she's choking to death. That was right before the scene before. It's like she's so indignant about the fact that Veronica asks her what kind of corn nuts. She gets so mad, like it's so dumb. And then the final word out of her mouth as she's choking is corn nuts. And then she smashes face first into the glass table.
Yep.
But then it leads to yet one of the best parts of where this movie goes, in that part of it is her wanting to get back at Heather. The other part of it is everybody in the school, even Heather's friends, don't like Heather. Nobody likes that Heather. And this is kind of okay, well, fine. JD Christian Slater's character is definitely more of let's just rid the school of the popular kids, because who cares? And Veronica kind of gets a feeling maybe that okay, well, Heather's gone, so the evil is gone. Except then she becomes like a martyr at the church, where now everybody in the school is, oh my gosh, Heather was the best. We all loved Heather. Who didn't love Heather? Which, then.
Well, so to cover up the murder, they forge, which Veronica can forge handwriting perfectly. They forge a suicide note, so everybody thinks Heather committed suicide, and yeah, she becomes even more popular in death after suicide, which from here on out, the movie is kind of about teen suicide now, which again, I just
don't
upping
do
the
it.
Stakes. It's just the
Teenage
name
suicide.
of the popular song
Don't do it.
By the fake band Big Fun.
Big
right?
Fun. Correct. So we end up with another couple of sequences that involve the church and Glenn Shaddix. And if you don't know the name Glenn Shaddix, you 200% know the guy. He was definitely in Beetlejuice, but he was the character this week that I saw and was like, oh, what? Otho.
Right, Beetlejuice. I've only seen him once.
Why is Otho in everything?
I guess he was the mayor in Nightmare Before Christmas too, who did the voice.
That's right. Nice.
Yeah.
Good pull on that one.
No, I just looked it up. It doesn't count.
Good tell me.
Wouldn't have known.
But those sequences are great because he ends up as he's at the pulpit, he's the pastor or whatever, and he has these just amazing like monologues.
The MTV video games.
The MTV video games.
Which became a legitimate thing later, but at the time is just a perfect nonsense combination of things that parents hate.
Right, exactly. So this brings us to the point where now we're down to two Heathers and a Veronica, and one of the Heathers at this point, it's Heather McNamara, which is Lisanne Falk's character. She ends up taking over as the Heather, if I remember correctly.
No.
Oh, Doherty is number 2. So Doherty takes over, and it all comes back to like grabbing like Heather had a red hair scrunchie that she used,
yeah,
so
which
that
is the first thing we see in the movie. It's part of that great slow motion opening,
right? And then we see Shannon Doherty's character now dresses slightly better. She now has that. She also refuses to, like, she's the one with the red croquet ball. She's the one that, and you see that character kind of then slowly is trying to ascend into the mean girl that the other Heather was.
But with the help of Christian Slater, we're moving pretty quickly. This is after Winona and Christian Slater break as a couple, essentially. Christian Slater takes it too far into straight up serial killer territory, and tries to convince Veronica that he's only doing what she really wanted to do, as he tells her lies about, bullets don't actually do damage and stuff like that.
Right. He calls them Ich lüge bullets,
which I guess is I'm lying.
In German it's basically exactly. It means that they're liar, they're fake.
I read the Wikipedia.
Oh, look at you. Which, by the way, this is actually another scene that I do we should call out. So the part of what happens later on is one of the Heathers is going to go out on a date with the two jocks that JD quote unquote shot at the beginning of the movie, and she asks Veronica to come help do the double date. They end up going to a pasture to tip cows, and the two jocks basically pass out, and Veronica ditches them.
Well, so the only reason I'm going to pause there is because one of the, again, this thing just gets darker. One of the scenes that gave me pause reading up, because I'd like to know at least a little bit of what I'm getting into with movies. And, there are some things I won't do. And this one, apparently, according to some people, had a rape scene in it. And I was concerned about that. I have concerns about that. And
okay, fair.
It was interesting to know that this is one of the scenes that Winona Ryder calls out as one of her favorites because it is so subtly dark. In that scene where they are tipping cows and one of the guys tries to get with Winona, but she's already with Christian Slater. Insert character names here. But character Slater comes to rescue her because her guy has basically made his advances and passed out on the floor.
Into a bunch of cow crap.
Christian Slater comes up and is like, hey, let me rescue you from this. But in the background of that scene, essentially the other Heather, not Shannon Doherty's
it's Heather
Heather,
McNamara.
sorry.
Yeah, Lizanne Falk.
Is being date raped by her boyfriend in the background.
Yeah.
Just as things, you don't see, he's just on top of her and won't let her go, and it's very far in the background. But that's one of the scenes that Winona Ryder calls out as, again, all of this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like the punchline doesn't come until the third act. So really, this is just darker and darker and darker.
There's like there's a portion there that obviously there's that moment where part of, I'm sure, the reasoning is that her knight in shining armor shows up but completely ignores everything, and even she is ignoring everything that's going on. And which was
her point, is it's one of the scenes she likes because it's not explicit in that way. Like, it's not like the date rape is referenced later on in the movie.
No.
Or that, it tells you a lot about everybody in the scene right then.
But so this leads to the moment with where the two jocks then go and spread rumors that Veronica was promiscuous with both of them, and so she and JD kind of JD mostly gets the plan to get a whole bunch of items that would kind of make them look like and keeping in mind the timing on this, that they're gay. So like sparkling water, like really
mineral water, because they're in Ohio, and let's face it. And when the cops arrive and they find that mineral water, that's
the first thing they say is actually the mineral water.
Obviously, we know what was happening.
Yeah. So they lure the two jocks out to these two little spots in the middle of the woods, and they're going to shoot them with quote unquote Ich lüge bullets, but Veronica misses the shot, of course, forcing JD to chase down one of them, murdering them both. They get everything going, and then it leads to, again, one of the best turns where you have all of this, like, it's you kind of totally assume this is going to be homophobia and that they're using all this stuff, and it ends up turning into the father with maybe the most memorable line of the whole movie, screaming at the funeral, "I love my dead gay son." but they turn it into a thing where they actually don't. It doesn't become a homophobia thing. It actually is. It's almost like everybody then suddenly accepts that.
If you don't stick around till the end, again, you're not going to get the joke, because there are moments where Winona Ryder kind of also participates in the gay shaming type thing.
Oh, sure.
So her being the main thing, you're like, oh, is it really of that time that, they're just not as delicate with that as they could be? But no, by the end, that's the mindset that they're making fun of. That's the mindset that is, it's not, as Winona Ryder comes around, and yes, as the father defends his dead gay son, that is the prevailing mentality, even though it's not really, like, they don't come out and say it's okay to be gay type. They don't.
No, but that's not that, and they never would. But it's the fact that
but they are making fun of the homophobes, essentially, is
right?
What it comes out to.
And then essentially, like, it's the same thing where like it's also that note of Heather dies, quote unquote suicide.
Yeah, all of these deaths, there's forged suicide letters to go along with them, by the way.
Yeah, and this was supposed to be a murder suicide or double suicide. That's what the whole the two guys, the two jocks. But it's like it's that the worst thing that can possibly happen to the worst people, and now they get, instead of being vilified for who they were at the time they were alive, oh, we just didn't know, they're way better people. So there's also that little bit to it, which is another part of reality. It's not as funny as the other bits, but it's true. But that finally leads us to where we're almost at the third act here, or we are at the third act, where Veronica and JD are now officially done. She does not want to be involved with him.
Yes, I feel like that's where we were getting by explaining all that.
Yes,
was that they are gone. Shannon Doherty, Heather, has taken the reins with Christian Slater behind the wheel, kind of driving her and giving her pointers, and they get a petition going to bring the teen suicide band to the school. I'm not sure how that figures into the plan. Essentially, it doesn't actually happen. But
no. So okay. So you missed. Okay. So here's let me give you the information. So the whole point of him helping her get this signature, all these signatures to get the band there, that was never the case. He tells her that, but he has a large suicide note that he was going to blow the school up with and kill all the kids and leave that suicide note, and they all signed it.
Oh, I did miss that.
That's the entire point of the bomb in the school, and the petition to get them signed, so that
Okay, so that is how the movie ends, and let's just do the ending, and then I'll get kind of to overall thoughts, I think, because the plot's important, but not always the most important thing.
This is all this movie is definitely a writing and subtext thing.
Yes.
As opposed to the actual, maybe the plot devices that are used.
Also, I want to talk about the ending specifically, because it wasn't the original one.
No, it's not.
And so Christian Slater has formulated this plan to blow up the school. He's attached all the bombs. Winona Ryder has figured it out, fakes her own suicide to get him kind of off her back, because he was coming to actually kill her at one point. So he's off getting the school ready. She shows up with a gun. There's a struggle that ensues, and at the end, she is able to defuse by making Christian Slater accidentally stab
she
the bomb
shoots
with
him
a knife.
And he cuts the wire with his knife. Like, he falls down with a switchblade.
Which stops the bomb in the school, follows Winona Ryder outside, where he shows that he has strapped a bomb to himself. And it's kind of this fun, like they've had their struggle. It's almost an epilogue, essentially. She's saved the day or whatever, and he's like, oh, that was really good. You really got me back there. And then walks farther out and sets the bomb off himself and blows himself up. So it, to me, that moment is Wile E. Coyote failing, right? So and she is the Roadrunner, and she's the Roadrunner in every respect in this particular moment, because he blows up,
Nothing else is really damaged. She is now covered in like black soot and her hair is a mess. She lights a cigarette and then she goes and talks to Martha Dunstock, who is now, after she had tried to kill herself by walking into traffic, is now in a motorized wheelchair that she spins around and drives around with her, and they go back to watch movies.
We didn't mention that either. Like that was the actual real suicide attempt by the girl that they played that horrible trick on in the beginning of the movie. Also, there is another actual horrible suicide attempt by the
Heather McNamara.
So this is where the movie's coming together. Calling it the punchline isn't fair or even descriptive enough.
I actually agree with it. I think punchline is good because I think
functionally that's what it is. That's what we're looking at. But it's where the movie is actually congealing into something. Where if the whole time you were like, man, this movie's so dark, like what is it actually trying to say? This is where that's all coming together. And I think for the most part it does come together really well. And I wish I had like a cool one sentence. It's saying this, but I think that's a whole another podcast. Essentially, it uses all of that to give teen suicide real meaning and real import, because the whole school reacts to all of these fake teen suicides like the media does. You know, like they're talking all about these huge one-page spreads in the yearbook.
It's more tasteful than it sounds. That's what the guy says.
It's all in their interests, though, is the thing. You know, they lap it up. At one point, we get a teacher who we think might have her head screwed on right, because she's like, no, we need to come together as a school and, you know, talk about our feelings, which, you know, is a funny way to put that. But I'm like, okay, I think, you know, we might actually have somebody in the movie who we're supposed to be like, yeah, but by the next scene that she's in, she's also turned it into her own thing. That's completely bizarre and off kilter. And I think there are a couple moments where that I would point to if I wanted to give an answer key, maybe, or give myself an answer key if I ever went back and actually wanted to figure out a coherent statement on what this movie's trying to say. But it's one of them's the diary. Like, her diary is a pretty dead giveaway to what actually is going on, because you get an insight to what she's thinking, but also what she's doing, what she means, and, you know, the protagonist's journey through this thing. At one point, she talks about having tried things both ways. She tries things Christian Slater's way. She tries things like that crazy teacher's way. It's obvious the movie is talking about a third way. The other moment I would give, which is even shorter, but also, I mean, I smiled through most of the stuff. The jokes aren't necessarily like laugh out loud jokes. They're kind of more smirky and
like, they're dark comedy. So it's kind of like
taken aback jokes. Yeah,
you kind of go.
Did we mention it's a dark comedy? But this one time I laughed completely out loud in a way that may have woken up my wife. I was watching this last night. It's when she has the conversation with her parents, and for most of the movie, conversation with her parents exists of her calling her dad an idiot in a joking way, like line for line, and her mom saying, "Oh, you too."
Why do I smoke these things? Because you're an idiot.
And her eating some pate and then leaving.
I got a motor.
But this one time, she comes down, and it's after another teen suicide, I believe. Right? I don't know, but she gets all up in arms with her parents, and her parents finally talk back to her. It's the one true conversation they have in the movie, even though it's followed up with her mom trying to get out of it with some pate again. But a couple lines come from that. One is that her mom lets something drop like, why is it that when kids complain about wanting to be treated like an adult, it's usually when they are being treated like an adult?
Right.
It's a great line about life.
It is.
But Veronica... and I forget, I should have written down this actual quote, but I wrote down the response and said, goes off about how nothing is real and nobody pays any attention to anything. And it says something along the lines of, you guys are just patronizing us like bunny rabbits or something, to which her dad vehemently denies, saying, I don't patronize bunny rabbits. I lost it, man. I don't know what it was about that one thing, just out of nowhere, but, if I'm looking for meaning in this movie, it's around that spot, combined with the journal entries. So at the end of the movie, we're getting the answers kind of to all this, what has all this meant. And it's good enough in that scene where it's Winona and Christian Slater going back and forth, defusing the bomb and all that stuff is good enough, and it makes enough sense. They did a good enough job with it. I like the ending that was better, and I know that's just the most whatever thing to say, but
nope, I get it, man. There's a specific movie I have in my head that I desperately would love to have seen the original ending, and it'll never be seen.
I feel like each time I hear about the original ending that the writer had in mind, it's always makes more sense. And here it is. This is it from IMDb. This is not the stupid trivia of the week, but it is in that section. The original screenplay had a different ending in which Veronica kills JD by shooting him and then straps the bomb, a much larger and more complicated piece of equipment described as being a cylinder as large as a television set, why that's important, to herself, blowing up as JD does in the final ending. What is placed in the final ending is JD's boiler room speech about imagine I blew up the school, imagine I blew up all the schools, which is it's a great line either way, is contained in a suicide note found in Veronica's locker by Heather McNamara and Betty Finn. The movie ends with an eerie prom sequence set in heaven, tying into JD's assertion that the only place everyone will truly get along is in heaven, which is another thing he says. The prom begins with students dancing within their social cliques, then switching partners in odd pairings like metalheads dancing with Heathers and one of the murdered jocks getting his prom picture taken with a tipped cow. The punch being served is the drain cleaner used in the first murder scene, and Dump Truck, the girl who actually tries to commit suicide, is singing on stage as the entertainment for the evening. This was intended to be shot, but the studio thought it was too dark for the target teenage crowd and opted for a lighter ending.
Yeah.
That is the ending that this movie... think about the very first scene again, all that we talked about this movie, like what's real, what's not. That is the ending that movie should have.
Totally agree.
But the one we get is
it's good. It's
good.
The ending. It's the only ending that I had ever known until more recently. And look, I like it. I like the ending. I like the movie for what it is. I still think it's a great movie. Finding out about the ending though, like that, again, it's like there are other movies that do that, and I just go, dude, why? Stop.
Because it's too dark. That's why.
That's actually the other movie is Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead.
Oh wait, that had a darker ending that people thought.
Yeah. Well, so do you remember the ending of Dawn of the Dead?
I'm gonna get Dawn and Day of the Dead confused. Dawn was in the mall.
The mall, right?
Okay.
She gets up on the roof. She is the.
Oh, that's right. And the African American dude
he's gonna kill himself.
Like he might just stay there
and just let himself get eaten by the zombies. Then he gets mad and like whatever, and he jumps, decides to get out, kills zombies, climbs up to the roof, gets to the helicopter with her, and they take off. In the original, and now this is one of my favorite weird things of trivia because nobody really knows. And now that George is dead, we'll never actually know. George claims never ever shot. This is only written down. Tom Savini says, bull, I did the effect for it. It was shot. At the end of the movie, he does kill himself. He finds himself surrounded and just kills himself. And she, hearing the gunshot, realizing that nothing is going to change, actually sticks her head out into the blades of the helicopter.
Oh, jeez. Okay. That is dark.
Way darker. And the fact that, again, Savini is kind of one of these guys where, I don't know. I always kind of go back and forth. I think the guy is kind of full of it. I think he's been caught lying before, but I don't really see why he would be like, yeah, of course I did the effect for it. We shot it. And actually I think Galen Ross mentioned she shot it. They had filmed the sequence. So Heathers. What is your crazy, what is your trivia?
Oh,
does it have to do with the movie Airheads? Because Michael Lehman, Daniel Waters, who wrote it, and Michael Lehman, who directed it, neither of them have had stellar careers, but they've made a couple of movies here and there. One of them being Airheads. It's my favorite.
Oh, nice!
I love
it. I can kind of see that actually.
Freaking Michael Lehman made that. I love that movie.
Yeah. So Michael Lehman, all credit, but when somebody tells me that the writer really wanted Kubrick to direct their movie, sure.
Well, I mean,
but also if he had, like, this might be an all-time classic. Another stupid statement, but good gosh, can you even imagine? Like, I bet we would have our ending, and which is the reason he wanted him. Like, this was seen as kind of a tribute to Dr. Strangelove in a way.
Sure,
that kind of dark comedy. So he wanted Kubrick in on the thing.
I could totally see that. I could totally agree with that. Yeah.
Man, another movie I'm glad you got me to watch.
Killing
There
the
you go.
game. I'm all over it.
Your record is maintained.
Finally.
Which
Wait.
is why I'd give it still 304 stars.
Out of 306. Pretty good.
Man, you're so quick on that.
Pretty
I
good.
always think I'll get you.
Pretty good.
IMDb's stupid trivia of the week, you say?
Yeah, I want it.
Man, I tell you, it is truly like they run out towards the end, because halfway down the list, I'm like, these are all pretty good, and then it just goes off the rails. Just a bounty of bad trivia to choose from. I skipped over the one that points out how the line "Oh, the humanity" is used, and then gives a word for word on the actual Hindenburg disaster for some reason. I skipped over that one.
Oh,
I'm going to go with this one.
okay.
Quote, "The gun JD fires near the beginning of the film is a .44 Magnum. An alternate name for the gun is the Remington Magnum. The college party Veronica and Heather attend is held at Remington University." Mm-hmm.
That is dumb.
Man.
Here. I can give you a dumb one off the top of my head.
Okay. Can you? Can you?
Probably not. But Westerberg High is named after Paul Westerberg.
Okay, I almost put that one in, but the way it shares it in here is that it's like, oh, one of Winona Ryder's favorite bands at the time was The Replacements. The lead singer is Paul Westerberg. I'm like, she didn't write the script.
Right, that has nothing to do with
There's
it.
no reason after the fact she went over to either the director or the writer and was like, hey, I really like The Replacements. Can we change the name of the high school to Westerberg?
Can we do something in here for them?
Close. That's pretty good. Okay. No, you got, but it's already in here, so I can't really.
Well, never mind. I'm sorry. I apologize. I've wasted everybody's time.
Heather's is fun. There you go. Official review.
Heather's is fun?
Speaking of fun, are we going to have some more? Oh, speaking of fun. You think about what movie we're going to watch next week, because we haven't talked about that yet.
We have
The
talked
movie.
about it.
Okay, good. Oh, we did. That's right. We do this every week. Why do we come up with ideas?
I don't know.
So last week we did a show on Fred Willard / Best in Show.
Yeah.
That did not go up because our storage quota ran out where we host the podcast.
Really?
Yeah,
Good
I
job.
don't know how. There are some months that there's like 5 Mondays in a month, I think is what it is, obviously, and
That's
or 5 whatevers in a month, because since I don't release them on Monday.
Yeah.
So that show will go up today, the 1st.
Woo!
So that's that. The thing I think you're thinking about that we're going to do next week, they say we're going to do Movie Olympics.
Movie Olympics.
Okay, so for those of you who haven't heard
I'm nervous.
this idea that we stole, there's a show out there called Comedy Bang Bang.
Never heard of
do.
Solo Bolo.
I don't know if it's only during the Solo Bolo.
They
I don't
only
know.
they do music Olympics during the Solo
Okay,
Bolo.
that's true,
Because that's all they're
actually,
doing. They're constantly doing. They're singing together and changing the songs up as they go.
And it is a sight to behold if you watch podcasts. So
Which I do.
Just wanted to say that's where we're stealing this idea from. We're going to do the Movie Olympics, which is something I feel like, okay, that we do anyways sometimes, where somebody says something and the other person says, oh, that reminds me of something completely different that I'll talk about for a while now. So that, but also I feel like we just like backdoor invented a conversation is all. So we're going to do this Movie Olympics thing where we have a starting point that came from my wife, and I don't have the quote here with me exactly, but
I know what it is.
it's Mary Poppins.
It's the Poppins.
And that will launch us into whatever. Maybe by the time we record it, we'll have actual rules to it. There are some that are kind of bouncing up and down in my head because there probably needs to be an end, but also a through line. Like, I feel like it can't really just be us having a conversation. It needs some hokey fake sport like volleyball or
with the word Olympics after it, I think fits that.
Okay. Well, it's a feat. We go until one of us
We die.
dies. That's not how the Olympics works. Maybe the more random the poll. I don't know. It's not. It can't just be us.
We'll figure it out.
Saying things about movies for an hour.
That's
totally
it can untrue.
I
don't know why you're pigeonholing something that does not need to be holed into a pigeon.
Okay. I am going to do my best to make it as bizarre as possible. That's all I'll say.
You maintain what you can. I am going to find where the rails are and go completely off.
Okay. All right. I think we're on the same page. somehow.
I am spending a mass majority of the time next week talking about Ralph Bakshi and animated films, and that is all.
Okay, you're already. But you're gonna. Oh, was that from Mary Poppins? You're right. There's animated stuff. Maybe I should watch Mary Poppins before we do this. I don't know if I've ever.
I haven't seen Mary Poppins since I was probably 6.
Okay, all right.
I may watch Mary Poppins Returns.
I have that. See, that's the reason I haven't watched that is because I haven't watched I got to watch them both.
Yeah, but one of them has Emily Blunt. The other one only has Julie, whatever her name is.
And that's just a little taste of what that show is gonna be like. So come back for that. Are we gonna do the rest of the show? You got anything else you want to talk about?
I got a couple things I can poop out of my face hole with words. I got some verbal diarrhea for some rest of the show.
Another name for next week's show.
Verbal diarrhea Olympics.
I
like that you didn't.
Diarrhea Olympics.
I like that you didn't immediately discount that. That there was hey, could be worse.
Everything deserves a shot. I don't, no king shaming.
So we got let's do the podcast at bookclubformovies.com.
Oh yeah, that's where
Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. Hit us up, send us information, tell us what you thought about the show, tell us if you got other movies. Let's do the rest of the show, and I'm gonna just hit you with a couple quick ones. We watched 300 again last night. I had just watched it like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
I kind of fell asleep during it, so I kind of in and out. But last night, Beth hadn't seen it in forever, and I hadn't obviously I was gonna watch it, but I did turn it on at I want to say I turned it on at 2 a.m.
Wait, why obviously were you going to watch it?
Because it's obviously getting warm out, and so I want to take off my shirt and look good.
Okay. All right.
That
so
movie.
Make sure I understood
that movie is a pretty top to bottom, pretty good movie, man. I forgot that's actually a pretty solid movie. I mean, we're not talking I don't know. It's a good action movie. It's got good sequences. The visuals are, I mean, we all know that's what Zack Snyder is best known for at this point. But man, going back to that still, that movie is top tier, gorgeous cinematography, the coloring, the palette they use, the fact that it looks almost 1-to-1 with the comic books in certain parts. They definitely took some of the covers and used them. They used and it is.
That was an early movie of his, wasn't it?
Ish. It was his first one that put him on the map.
I was gonna say yeah, actually. Sorry, keep going.
No. And
IMDb Zack Snyder here
and something that I never had realized, and I kind of mentioned this to you last night, and I was talking to Beth about this, was that the end, that whole movie is super interesting in the fact that it is being completely told as a story by Dilios. Dilios is telling the council members the entire story of what Leonidas is doing, because the council is corrupted by Xerxes. So Dilios is telling this whole story. So all of it is supposed to be I never considered that the whole movie is just a narration, and that the entire end portion where the 300 bravely stand and they make the God King bleed may not have happened. But it's,
you love yourself a good unreliable narrator.
I'm a fan, but I love it because in particular Dilios loses an eye in battle, and the purpose specifically for him being sent back to get the rest of the Spartan army is Leonidas telling him that he knows he has basically the gift of gab. The guy can speak. He knows how to rally people to the cause. That's why he's sent. It's totally in a wink and a nudge saying, tell them we won. Tell them we fought. Tell them we did whatever we needed to do to get them here. And that's even more interesting to me. It doesn't change anything else about the movie overall. I mean, it's historical fiction to its very best. Sure. But I love that aspect to it, and that it makes the historical fiction aspect even more entertaining to me.
Is that true to the source? It's been a while since I've read the book.
I have not read the book since 2002, something like that.
I would imagine that's the same in the book. Yeah, given how
I'll have to look. I think it's a Delio's story. I think he's telling the story, but I truly don't remember.
A Delio story.
A Delio story. It's similar. It's
alternate
the sequel to
title for the film.
It also a Delio's story is coming out next year. It's gonna have Casey Affleck in it. He dies and becomes a Spartan ghost. The other movie, also, by the way, totally, I forget this every time, but that Michael Fassbender's in that movie. And he's in the movie.
What?
Yeah. Michael Fassbender is not only in 300, he's the guy that is in, he is there at the very end of the movie with Leonidas.
Did not remember.
Yeah.
Is Kevin Sorbo in that? Or am I thinking of a spoof of it? Okay.
Definitely
thinking. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just make sure.
He might be in the sequel. I don't know. That guy is a piece of garbage. The other movie I watched that I have been pushing off watching this because for just so many reasons. But Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. I want to preface this a little bit.
Fair enough.
Moving on. I like Kevin Smith. I genuinely like the man, as far as I can tell from anything I've ever read and seen and heard about. That he just seems like genuinely the nicest guy in the world. Everybody seems to like him. He's always upbeat. He gives people time. He's never we don't hear any weird racist garbage. Like, the guy is, for all intents and purposes, a normal dude that just happens to be kind of a goober.
He's had a career and a half. I mean,
he has.
From Clerks to his bigger stuff. It's just into lately, and then the heart attack. And the guy can talk. He's the guy that can talk from.
He can.
If this were the 300.
Yeah, he's Delios.
The Delios of cinema.
Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. I think it functions kind of on two to three things for him. Number one, this is always universally going to be something I think he will go back to. Not even for fans, but as I think as kind of a thank you and a almost like a reminder for Jason Mewes, who he flat out did Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, was completely done because of Mewes being clean. That was the whole thing. It's and a bunch of the stuff he's done involving Jay and Bob have to do after, I want to say, Mallrats is when it started. But then he fluctuated and he's had issues. But a lot of it was, I'll do the movie, I'll write a movie that you can star in if you stay clean. That's where Clerks 2 came from,
really?
in certain respects. Yeah. So it's that. But this movie, so this movie completely revolves around a couple of things also. The other thing being his daughter. And Harley has now been in most of his movies to a degree somewhere. Cameos. She started in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. She was the baby.
Oh,
so she
she was straight up one of the mains in Yoga Hosers, right?
She and Lily Depp. And she's one of the mains in this. So it's Jay, Bob, and her basically. And the story ostensibly is it's a ridiculous thing, but Kevin Smith exists in their world, and everybody kind of sees him. And they're like, why does Bob look like Kevin Smith? That's real weird. And they actually play with it at the end where he switches places with Kevin Smith. But the entire movie is they find out there's a reboot being made. They had their names taken. They're not allowed to call themselves Jay and Silent Bob anymore, even as just humans, which is whatever, movies. And in the process, they see the local weather woman for one of the areas they're in happens to be, I can't remember her name for the life of me. She's not a great actor by any means, but she was in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. She was the one that he kind of falls in love with, one of the diamond thieves. And we find out that they have a kid, and it's Harley is his kid. And he knows throughout the whole movie, and she doesn't know, and then it becomes a road trip trying to get to Hollywood to stop this movie from being made again. And again, by the way, everything that has to do with how much this movie is similar to Strike Back, or Strikes Back, they reference it. They at one point straight up go, yeah, the difference between a reboot and a remake is this. One of them takes the entire idea, just reuses it and adds youth to it. The other one does X, and they bring it up so many times. They're like, hey, look, we've just added youth. It is, in terms of the Jay and Silent Bob stuff, it's tough.
Okay, man, is it good, man?
That's what I'm trying to get to, because it is, and it's by far, I think, the most uneven one of these movies he's done, and I think that he kind of is caught up in between getting something really good out there, but also doing the wink and the nod to everybody, and I think that some of those things don't land. Lots of it does. But the fact that Harley is actually really solid in this movie, she has an arc, and yeah, again, it's a Kevin Smith arc, and so don't take that in the wrong way. But this is not Clerks. This is not that original. This is not Mallrats. It's not written quite as sharply as that, but it still has a lot of that trademark Kevin Smith dialogue. It still has a lot of the stuff that if you like Kevin Smith's comedy stuff, you'll find it here. It's just uneven, but the end of the movie and the family thing, and I fully admit, man, that there's a Chasing Amy pull at the end with Ben Affleck, and it's really good. Like, it's just, it's like, for whatever reason, Kevin Smith got sucked back into that moment of Chasing Amy and writing that, and how good the writing is in that movie, and he wrote this one little bit, this one section, just for Affleck, and he kills it, and it's great, and it's about him being a dad, and it's about and that's the whole movie, is about fatherhood, and I love it.
Does it play outside of the movie? Like, if I don't watch this movie, I should at least Google that clip, or what?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's going to be more of a, like, there's some reference there that you know, if you don't remember Chasing Amy, it might not click.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen Chasing Amy now that you mentioned it.
But you don't even necessarily have to have seen Chasing Amy. It's more of
I know enough about it.
Yeah. It's more about like the end result for Chasing Amy is Holden, Ben's character, is in love with, I can't remember her name. It's not Amy. Amy is the story that Bob tells. But he's in love with Joey Lauren Adams' character, who she is a lesbian, and she at one point,
that much I know.
She at one point was not, but she learned about herself, what have you. And this movie takes that to the next level, where they are still friends. They are still working together to a point, because they were both comic book artists. But they ended up with a kid, and it ends up being they liked each other for so long that she wanted him to be the father. And
is it kind of a make good on Chasing Amy? Because I feel like I've heard there are aspects to that movie that don't hold up.
There are so the
as much.
The parts that don't hold up are parts that definitely it actually gets referenced here as well, in that and Kevin Smith has said it now, that the story he wanted to tell is still the story he wanted to tell, and he's happy with it, but he was not the right person to tell that story.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because,
that's kind of what I'm. Yeah.
He's a straight white guy, and
Sure.
It was not the right. But that isn't really the thrust of the thing. It's really more about the parenthood and the fatherhood and stuff. It's a great sequence. I'll find it. I'll send it to you.
Okay, so I guess to put a bow on this, if you could, when you say the movie's uneven, which does kind of track with a lot of late era Kevin Smith stuff.
Yeah.
What would we say is uneven Kevin Smith?
Well, I mean,
late era Kevin Smith.
If I take out, so like Yoga Hosers is one that I think is extremely uneven. I love the idea. I love all the work that went into it. The concept behind it's funny. Some of the writing is really genuinely funny. But it overall just kind of doesn't. It's just not great. It's low budget, but it's not well done.
Story doesn't come together.
No,
because I feel like when we say uneven, like a lot of people are just saying bad. Like Yoga Hosers was a bad movie,
which people hate. Yeah.
Silent Bob was a bad movie. Like it's.
And I can watch Yoga Hosers. It's fine. It's tantamount to watching a better trauma movie. That's kind of where it is. I mean, we're talking about sausages that come to life that are Nazis. So I don't know how else you get further than
that's actually pretty good. I think it's a good barometer too, because if you're going to a trauma movie, you're going to a trauma, and if you don't know you're going to a trauma movie, then somebody's playing a pretty good joke on you, or
Right.
you're not in control of your life. So yeah, I guess okay. I think
it's,
if you're going to see a Kevin Smith movie, you're going to see a Kevin Smith movie, and there's probably enough there to keep you watching a Kevin Smith movie.
Yeah, I mean, so this movie is, again, it pulls everything from his View Askew universe. Almost everybody is in it. There are a handful of people that don't make cameos, which still blow me away that they're not, like, I just don't know why, but whatever. People make choices. I don't know. Matt Damon's got a cameo in it.
It's like the bigger the star, the more he's able to get them. But if they're not working at all, they're like, I don't think so.
Right, Trevor Furman, Trevor Furman, I think that's his name. He was the one that I don't get. He starred in Clerks 2 and has never done anything else. And I don't know why he's never popped up again, because everybody seemed to like him. But there's like a great example of where this unevenness works and happens is actually the Matt Damon cameo. The Ben Affleck cameo as Holden makes perfect sense. He's a comic book artist. They're doing a Comic-Con thing for Blunt Man and Chronic, and he of course was the creator of it, so he's there and he's a big deal. The Jason Lee cameo, that makes sense to a point. And by the way, I love Jason Lee. It is really weird to see him put on weight.
Oh, is he a little
because
chubby now? Yeah.
He used to be so thin, skateboarder, and now he's got a huge pot belly, and it's really it's weird, man.
All right, I'll check that out.
But there's the Matt Damon scene. They pull him from Dogma, and they talk about, and he's Loki, and he's sitting in a church. It is apropos of nothing. Like, it's just I was able to film Damon reading some dialogue. It doesn't fit in with the movie. It goes nowhere. It has no reference at any other point. It's literally, there's a scene, a cut to Matt Damon sitting in a pew, turning around, talking to the camera, talking about how he was the first Loki. Check it out before stupid Marvel movie. That's it. So
well, yeah, that still tracks with what I feel like Kevin Smith always said that movie was going to be. I wish he would figure out better reasons for some of the fan service, but I feel like sometimes sometimes it's fan service, and that's it.
I think that the Jay and Silent Bob stuff functions on that level, in that, yeah, I know I can get people to come see this. I know people will pay for it, but it's also something that is rewarding for some of the people that he's known forever, that this is a way for him to throw a little bit of cash in their pocket. Like Brian O'Halloran, the guy who played Dante in Clerks. You think that dude's making a ton of cash and money? No, but he makes...
I thought that's who you were talking about, actually, when you said the guy from Clerks. Who is the guy from Clerks that doesn't usually show up then?
Oh, Clerks 2.
Clerks 2.
Yeah. Well, also Randall didn't show up. Clerks, yeah, but Randall, Jeff Anderson, who plays Randall, has said repeatedly, he's like, I'm never doing it again. I hate it. I hate all of it. I hate acting. So Clerks 2 was a nightmare for him for Smith to get Jeff Anderson to come back as Randall. And after that, he was like, yeah, I just won't. No. It's like dump truck of money, maybe.
Okay. We just did the impromptu Kevin Smith show that
there we go.
Here and there talked about.
And that's it. I actually am going to talk about, I'm finishing up. I've got like half an hour left in Constantine City of Demons, animated movie.
What? Oh.
Yeah. It's been out for a little while. I think 2018, but you might want to check that out.
I might want to.
Also, King Shark is a shark.
You finally got it in.
King Shark is a shark.
I don't know what it means. I don't ask.
Wait, do you not know what it means?
I know he's a shark.
I thought you have. Okay, so you don't have the frame for the reference yet. I
guess not.
I thought you had the okay.
I mean, that just makes it funnier. Again, don't tell me.
Now I'm just going to say watch Justice League Dark Apocalypse War and
because I would have got there. In fact, what I was saying was we could almost do just a DC animated show at some point.
Yeah, I'm down.
So that could be a thing. I've only got a couple that real quick for you. Here you go.
Yeah, hit me. I was supposed to be quick.
I mentioned I was doing kind of a documentary block that didn't really pan out. I haven't watched any more than I had watched by then. But one of them was the Image Revolution, which I think you called and have seen and talked about before on this show. Mm-hmm. It's a bare bones. It's not like... it's very easy to make documentaries, and the equipment for it is very accessible nowadays. And I would absolutely rather have people just point the camera at storytellers like Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, etc.
Mark Silvestri.
Anybody that was drawing comics at that time, literally anybody, because they all went to freaking Image. But I never knew the story behind that. I never knew how they got together, how they left.
Yeah.
I never knew Image was the one that put out freaking Walking Dead.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
My
no
nightmare.
idea.
My living nightmare.
Yeah. So
Friggin' book.
just that whole story about how the revolution that it was, like the movie is appropriately named, it's amazingly fascinating if you were anywhere around that stuff. And it's not, again, what I was getting at the beginning, it's not the most beautiful or perfectly filmed documentary ever. But if you're into that information, it is pure gold.
Loved it. I was a
great.
huge fan of all the bits with Eric Larson. Like his insight into stuff was super fascinating. And actually,
well, because he seems like the most normal dude of the bunch. Like Todd McFarlane is just like, like firing guns out of his holster like here and there. Rob Liefeld is I guess similar.
He's
but
kind of a loud
just
mouth.
So many big. Jim Lee. Actually, that's not true. Jim Lee's probably the most normal of the bunch.
Oh, I don't know. I think Eric Larson's the most normal of the bunch. I think Jim Lee is the most no, actually, I guess you know what? Actually, McFarlane's the most enterprising of the bunch. That guy is.
Oh yeah.
But the person that I also find I think I think is the most principled of the group is Silvestri. Silvestri seemed like the one that was like, yeah, I've got limits and this is where they are, and I'm not bending on them. I'm out.
Yeah, and I could just tell the whole story, but they formed this thing together. But what the revolution is that they were all independently, like they had their own companies, which I never clued in on, that they all kind of just published under the Image banner.
Right.
But if they decided to leave, they could just leave. They owned everything they did, and they owned it even separate from Image. Image was just the banner they all ran together.
That was the big thing for them, was to be creator owned wholly and totally.
So yeah, Silvestri at one point was just like Liefeld begins to overstep, and I think starts poaching some of his artists.
Yep.
So he's like,
nope, done.
Not gonna. He just leaves. Yeah, but then he comes back after Liefeld leaves. But then Liefeld also comes back because Kirkman's like, I love Kirkman in this thing, man. He's just
Kirkman is the biggest troll.
He is. He makes the comparison himself, but he is the step kid that wants to bring mom and dad back together. It's pretty great. It's a great movie. Again, if you're into that information. I'm several minutes into Chris Claremont's X-Men because I knew that was the next thing I had to watch.
It's a good one.
The other one I watched that I do want to shout out as loudly as possible is Pick It Up, Ska in the 90s.
Oh.
Heard of it?
No.
So my wife kickstarted it. My wife was in a ska band growing up, and this thing made her cry.
Aww.
And it is that good. That is a singular experience, I'm sure. But this is the perfect. I mean, if you're into ska at all, this is, again, pure gold. But even if you're not, it does a fantastic job of explaining where ska came from, and not only when, where, how it got so big, but also why that is and isn't important. Like, it does a good job of deconstructing. Let's put it this way. One of the guys in it the most is the lead singer for Real Big Fish.
Okay, sure.
And he is equal parts disarming. Like, he's not. When I saw the previews for this thing, I didn't know that was, like, I never would have guessed that's who that was.
Is it good or bad? Because
it's good. But like, I'm trying to say they get at when anything hits like that, especially as big as ska did, like the flash in the pan that was.
Yeah.
And yes, they do have the clip from Brooklyn Nine-Nine in there.
Thank goodness.
They do a really good job of telling you all sides of the story. Like, yes, some of its soul was lost. Like, there was something lost in the translation between Jamaica and LA.
Sure.
They dive into that deeper than just
the surface level of it.
Yeah, I guess that's all I'm trying to say.
do they talk about like the full like history, like do the specials, like the specials and everything? Yep. And okay,
they have some interviews.
Yeah, I guess I'm actually more curious. Do they dig into it to the the British run of stuff, because you got, like I said, you got the Specials, Madness, the English Beat.
Yeah, they do. They totally have the guy from one of the guys from the Specials. I feel like the main guy, but I'm not as familiar with them, and I spent an embarrassingly long amount of time trying to look him up right now and couldn't find him. But yeah, they got guys from that. They tell the story, all that, the two-tone, like
Nice.
they tell the whole thing. Yeah, Madness. You mentioned the English Beat. Funny story. My wife like when I say my wife was in a ska band, she this is in Idaho, so they weren't like huge, but they were popular enough locally and stayed together long enough to be pretty good together. They had some good covers too, and from what I've heard anyway. But a lot of what she did as part of that group, since she was the only girl, of course, but also the most put together of the bunch. And if you know my wife, this isn't what she do. She's okay.
You are just trying to, like,
go back so far here.
It's like you're trying to you've got a hole and you're like, do I dig down or do I try and get out?
I keep going down in my head is the problem. And
she doesn't listen. She's not going to get mad.
No. That's very true. I'm trying to give you the least amount of information about my wife as possible. We should do a show on my wife.
I agree. So, I'm fascinated.
Part of what she did for the band was she would set up the show. She was essentially the manager,
She's
right?
a booker.
She was the only one that had her life together enough to do that sort of thing, as any high school members of a ska band might be.
Sure.
So part of doing that was she would book with the other bands. There's a guy in this film just goes by the name of Bucket, who was, and I think does still run Moon Ska Records.
Okay.
You would recognize the logo.
Sure.
She used to talk with him on a regular basis, apparently. But in doing some of that stuff and also playing with these bands, she has lots of fun stories we could really do. Like, she was almost an Aquabat at one point because one of the members was leaving. But one of the... Where was this even going?
The English Beat.
She dated the saxophonist from the English Beat.
There we go.
For a while. And he wouldn't stop calling for the longest time. I won't mention anybody's name. It might have only been a touring member of the band as well, for all I know.
I bet he kept calling and was like, hey, you got a mirror in the bathroom?
You like John Cusack?
Hey, let me show you my pen.
It's a really good documentary.
Nice.
I feel like you would love it no matter what, just because you're into music and that type of thing. But even if you're not, it's a great history lesson. It's very well done.
Where's it at?
When I say the Image Revolution is kind of bare bones, this is straight up just well done. It's well filmed. It's well made. It's well put together. It's really cool.
Is it on Amazon?
She kickstarted it, so she just got a download code for Vimeo, of all places. I don't have anything against Vimeo. I don't know why I said it like that. But yeah, it's got to be out there. Yeah,
I'll have to check that out.
It's out there.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because Beth and I were seriously just talking last night, maybe the night before, about the decline of the Western civilization, both the movie and the actual occurrences.
So yeah, right. So that's the block that I was never able to really complete. I have a documentary called A Fat Wreck, the history of Fat Wreck Chords.
Yeah.
Or Fat Records, I guess is how you might actually say. Did you know there are 3 decline of Western civilization movies?
I knew there were 2. I've never seen the second one, which is the Metal Years. And so the third one must be Rap.
I don't know. Is it? That would be interesting.
I don't know. It kind of makes sense.
Like the first one was a freaking Bible growing up as a punk kid in California. Like, I can not even tell you how many times I watched that movie. That's funny. Without understanding it.
Sure.
But it was just a punk movie. Like, oh my gosh, the germs are in it. You're kidding. So yeah, that was the other 3
nice.
That would,
I have
work out. But will at some point.
Totally got to check out. I didn't know there was a third one.
Although I don't know. I think the first one might have a rape in it. Speaking of rape, this is the rape show.
What the hell?
We already mentioned it once. I feel like we don't often mention it at all.
So I guess we should talk about it all the time. Rape, rapey, rape. Both of those.
I might not see that.
I know 1 and 2 are on Amazon.
But I could be misremembering. It's been a while. Again, it's been 20 something years.
Late 70s documentary about the punk movement. Pretty sure there's nudity.
There's a girl in the pit, which
isn't there always.
Sometimes doesn't turn out good. I don't know. Let's stop talking about everything.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. Now. Hey, podcast at bookclubformovies.com. We're gonna have podcasts for you.
Come back next week for the movie Olympics.
Where we promise there will be at least 75% less rape discussion.
0. That's not even, I won't even bring that tangent to the table.
I'm not going to, I've watched animated movies and who knows.
And that's next week. So come back. Thanks for hanging out. As always, whenever you do. Matt.
Bye!
Teenage suicide. Oh, blew it. Teenage suicide. Don't do it. Teenage suicide. Every little thing has a place in the big picture.
Be clean and nice. Heed your parents' advice.
The cheerleader.